Listen. As the year and really decade comes to a close, we're going to be getting a lot of best of lists and a lot of comments complaining about best of lists. But I just wanted to say one thing 2019 was a better year in film than 2014. Let me explain.
You having a good time?
Yes.
Look, I'm not denying that 2010 or even 2011, which came in with heavyweights, weren't anything to mess with, considering that they have movies that have endured a decade and are still topping top 10s. But 2014, what a year. The blockbusters were great. The indie films from that year had as big of an impact as they did. And the animations, bruh, one of the animations prophesized to children how easily people get caught up in catchy music. From Action to Foreign to Seth and James Almost Killing Us. I truly thought 2014, for me personally, was going to be the best year in film for the decade. And then 2019 came in.
I am the one who knocks.
I love how the internet has given us the opportunity to talk about and get the word out on our favorite independent movies and stories. Yet most just use it to complain about massive blockbusters everyone already knows about. I know it's easy to be cynical of franchises, but some are bound to be done, right? You have a whole bunch of people getting employed because of these massive projects. Many times it's what brings in the profits to fund the indie movies we feel are superior. But sometimes we just complain to complain. I know Marvel's the big one that everyone's getting sick and tired of, and while I don't love all of it, man, I'll take the yearly Marvel tentpoles over the Michael Bay films we were getting at the beginning of the decade. Hell, look at all of the other franchises who seem to have all the money in the world, but not enough to stick their landings. Marvel's found the perfect formula with hiring indie filmmakers to help capture the emotions with the actors, while the VFX teams get better and better until they don't need to hire directors or the actors, or at least before they Trevor O'Tranks them. Bland remakes are obviously always going to be rampant. A lot of reboots arrive stale as can be, but a lot of new franchises look bright. I love the John Wick trilogy. Alita fans won't shut up about their sequel. And while the rinse, wash, repeat phrase is, Hollywood is not original, everything's bad, coming from people who log like 24 flicks on Letterboxd, I think a lot of risks are still being taken. Many times we just ignore them because they're the divisive films that we end up not liking, but those are still the risks. Seeing how goofy it went with its budget, I think it was bonkers. An $80 million space drama where Brad Pitt cries in space was made. Netflix wanted to sit at the big boys table so bad that they dropped $150 million just to age De Niro. And Scorsese ran with it. Watchmen on HBO showcased how to do a proper follow-up to a property without whoring out fan service. DC realized they shouldn't be Marvel. And we got an explosion of new voices that hit the mainstream that literally changed the way we view movies. And then there was streaming. Look back at 2010 and now. It has become the new way to watch movies. Now, if you're still that person who thinks that The Irishman playing in a theater is cinema, but that it somehow loses its cinematic qualities as it's transferred over to Netflix, man, you're goofy. Streaming services are out here really saving iconic theaters. When I went to Toronto for TIFF, one of the main theater venues was so petty about Netflix movies not being movies that they refused to play the soon-to-be Oscar contenders that, were a part of the festival program to begin with, just because they were going to be streaming. I wonder if they regret that. But hey, at one point, some people had problem with talkies, back in the day, because they were so used to silent films. That's how some of y'all look right now complaining about streaming services. I won't downplay the annoying of the streaming wars. We made an entire video about that as well. But you also can't ignore the impact. You look at streaming, YouTube, and how social media has changed the landscape of movies, and I personally think it's for the better. Remember when a Netflix original sounded worse than a Walmart bargain bin? Well, look at this glow up. Look at what Amazon is bringing us. Director Ava DuVernay, who now owns her own movie theater, like a lot of the great directors are now doing, once talked about the movie Straight Outta Compton and how certain places couldn't even see the movie because they didn't have access to a theater that was screening it nearby. And that included Compton. If only there was a way to get your movie seen by a lot of people simultaneously without them even having to leave the house. And perhaps even save some money so you don't lose it in theater distribution. I will always encourage buying the physical media to your favorites, so much so that I'm going to repeat, buy the physical media to all of your favorites. And I also don't think that anything will ever replace the theatrical experience. Everyone's always talking about the ups and downs with the movie theaters, and obviously that's always going to happen, but I think it'll always be there. It can't be replaced. But streaming's been a godsend for a lot of viewers and filmmakers.
Did studios really say, I'm not going to do this?
Yes.
Did they give you a reason for it?
No studio in Hollywood would make the picture. Netflix stepped up and it was a trade-off. So this is the way this picture had to be made.
Hey, I know some people still want the experience of watching a movie with people, and I would just say, invite friends. You don't have any and want strangers' reactions instead? Go on Twitter. I know some people would look down for being on Twitter and live tweeting while you're watching a movie or your favorite TV show, but when I'm in the theater and I'm looking down the screen, I'm still seeing a girl scrolling on Twitter. At least at home, it's my timeline. To me, Twitter has become the new way to watch movies on streaming platforms with an audience. You can get their feedback, you can see what people are talking about, different opinions and theories and things that you may have missed. Maybe it's in Facebook groups, Reddit threads, or personal group chats, places where you can mute the buffoonery or whoever's loud, unlike when you're in the theater. And there's also no limited releases out there to test the markets, which I've always hated if you've listened on this channel. Now it's accessible to everyone at home, on their phone. Hell, you can watch The Irishman on your Nintendo DS if you wanted to. I'm just glad they're available so that people can experience these
Stories. There's nothing in the world more powerful than a good story.
Now, if I haven't convinced you that the landscape of movies I personally think is better than it was a decade ago, then let me remind you what movies we actually got this year. We had a new Scorsese movie available day of. Tarantino gave us his 9th film and recreated Hollywood with 2 of the most iconic actors of all time. A decade of superheroes came to a satisfying endgame. Indie films were out of control. And while I thought the goofiest thing the Globes ever did was nominate and award The Martian as Best Comedy,
Thank you very much. Comedy?
ignoring all of the incredible female filmmakers of this year is the most foreign thing to come out of that Hollywood Association. And I've heard some rebuttals. Bruh, nah, you can hate 90 of these. By accident, there wasn't one? Cinematographer Caleb Deschanel, father of the Deschanels, has a great bit in his conversation with other cinematographers, Robert Richardson and Roger Deakins, where he acknowledges how digital cameras have helped foreign filmmakers tell their stories because they're not burdened or even denied the access of having film.
Evolution of digital technology, it's really remarkable that films from the most obscure place in the world, the quality has really gone up quite a lot. You know, I think we'll be surprised by the number of wonderful filmmakers that, you know, that come out in the future who otherwise would not have had the chance to make films.
So it's almost like limiting all these countries down to just 5 slots in one category makes no sense, especially when none of the A's in AMPA stands for America. Maybe I don't know anything about the Academy or gatekeeping, but it sounds a little foolish to me still. Overall, I clearly love 2019 and the year in movies, shows, and how many new voices and collectives have formed around film. Will there always be people who don't know how to talk about movies because they can't differentiate what an opinion is? Of course. I run a channel called Let Me Explain. I literally put it in the titles. I still get stupid comments. So now that 2019 has passed, and so has the year of goodbyes, as we've covered previously, I'm just excited to see what the next decade of film holds for us viewers and for all of the new filmmakers out there. And also, I believe it's finally safe for you to go watch Joker. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I will be making a Best of the Year, LME, Best of the Decade. LME, Alina and I are working on those right now, along with a bunch of the other projects, videos, all that we do want to get out before January. But we'll see. Leading up to Sundance, of course, we'll be covering all the new film festivals for this new year. We also have podcast forms for both Best of the Year and Best of the Decade over on the Intercut podcast. So if you wanted to hear those, we also even have a TV one. If you want to hear them more in depth, those, we go on for about an hour. But we will have a bunch of other LMEs coming out. And I just want to say thank you because this past decade, a lot of changes have happened. We started off with A to Z, and then A to Z branched out to Let Me Explain for just specifically movies. We're building Hear Me Out eventually. But Alina and I, my girlfriend and I, who have been editing these videos and working on these since way back in the A to Z show, it's just been very exciting to see it grow. It's been very exciting to be able to start a podcast with my great friend Zach and have that going, seeing that grow, being able to hire more friends like my buddy Zach, my buddy Chase as editors, hiring our first intern with Fernando, all the places we've been able to go, the people we've been able to meet, and just having a damn blast being able to do this. And I really want 2020 to be insane, better than ever, and I really do appreciate all of you who have listened along the way. So I just want to say thank you for commenting, thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing. And together we may be able to figure out what the hell constitutes an AMC artisan film.